You'll, of course, remember the death of Washington State Patrol Trooper Christopher Gadd at the hands of an undocumented immigrant who slammed into the back of Gadd's patrol car. High and drunk. His name is Raul Benitez Santana. It came out just shortly after Trooper Gadd was killed that Santana was in the country illegally. He's a citizen of Mexico, has been here for some time, and thanks to Washington State's sanctuary laws, had not been deported despite the fact that he had had several run-ins with law enforcement. So he's been behind bars awaiting trial for vehicular homicide. He'd been smoking weed. He had a blood alcohol level above the legal limit when, again, at high speeds, he slammed into the back of Trooper Gadd's patrol car in Snohomish County. So now it comes out, this from the Everett Herald, that a judge has dramatically reduced the bail for Raul Benitez Santana so that he can get out while he's awaiting trial, so that he can get back to his family. Never mind Trooper Gadd and his widow and their young child that he'll never get to see again. But of course, in this state, the priority is always the criminal, or in this case, alleged criminal, although there is a preponderance of evidence that, of course, he did this. So from the Everett Herald this week, Benitez Santana's attorneys asked Snohomish County Superior Court Judge Richard Ockrent to release him from jail, arguing he is not a risk to commit other crimes and he would appear at future court hearings. Benitez Santana has no felony convictions, but does have several misdemeanors for driving with a suspended license. The attorneys, Emily Hancock and Tiffany Mecca, noted in court filings that Benitez Santana has long lived in Washington, despite his status as an undocumented immigrant from Mexico. The Department of Homeland Security placed an immigration detainer on him, seeking to deport him from the United States, according to court documents. Hancock and Mecca wrote their client has 3 children and works as a mechanic. He has many relatives in the Puget Sound region. They noted he didn't have the money to post the $1 million bail. If released, they wrote, his parents will welcome him back into their home. He is not a flight risk. Now, putting aside his immigration status, because in Washington state, in our state courts and our county courts, because of our sanctuary policies, Raul Benitez Santana is just like any other criminal defendant. They're not allowed to consider or weigh his immigration status when setting bail. And therefore, the $1 million bail that was set for him was due to nothing other than the serious nature of the crime and what he had done. And I'm sorry if this sounds crazy in Washington state, but $1 million bail when you killed a state trooper, when you were driving high and drunk with such disregard for the sanctity of human life that you killed someone, $1 million seems pretty fitting comparatively to other crimes that we see in the state and other crimes involving homicide. So this whole argument about, his immigration status shouldn't matter XYZ, technically it doesn't in our sanctuary state and under our laws and rules. Now, I would argue that it absolutely matters, because when you're talking about someone who isn't a legal immigrant to this country, who came here illegally, who has broken laws since they've been in the state of Washington and now committed vehicular homicide, that to me is someone who has an awful lot of incentive to go back to Mexico. 10 years in prison, or maybe I go back to Mexico. So to me, the immigration status absolutely matters and should be considered a reason to keep someone's bail high, but not in Washington state. On Wednesday, Judge Ockrent reduced the defendant's bail to $100,000, according to the Everett Herald. Mr. Benitez Santana is a longtime member of our community, and Washington state is undeniably his home, his attorneys wrote in an email. The court did the right thing when it upheld the laws and policies of the state of Washington and lowered bail in this case from $1 million to $100,000. The defense worried, this is according to the Herald, the defense worried officers from the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service may arrest Benitez Santana if he posted bail, interfering with future court proceedings in this case. They wrote an argument: the United States and Washington state constitutions unequivocally guarantee all individuals in our country the presumption of innocence and the right to a fair trial. It is imperative that no government entity, including INS, be allowed to circumvent these fundamental rights. And they're asking essentially that if Benitez Santana posts bail under this reduced amount, that federal authorities will not apprehend him and try to send him back to Mexico, that they'll ensure that he remains in Snohomish County to stand trial, which I want as well. And I imagine that the family of Trooper Gadd wants that. I don't think that INS or the federal government, if he posts bail, will snatch him up and send him back to Mexico before he goes on trial for killing a police officer. Now, what they're really concerned about is that he's going to go to federal detention. What they really don't want is for immigration to pick him up and hold him in federal detention, and that's where he's going to be without any bail, because that's how the feds would do it. Federal detention, no bail at all, and yeah, we'll get you back up to Snohomish County for your court hearing. Because in Washington state, what his attorneys want and what our very liberal criminal justice system wants, and activist judges, is for Benitez Santana to be walking around free, where they say, oh, welcomed with open arms back by his parents, be able to hang out with his kids, go to work if he chooses, and completely ignore the serious nature of the crime. And they don't want him to be caught up at all in the immigration system. But think about that, $100,000 bail. In the bail system, that means you got to put down 20% cash in order to get out for a bail bondsman, and $100,000 equity. Anyone who owns a home in Washington state has $100,000 that they could assure a bail bondsman, hey, I'll come back to court. Or he can just, but the question is, of course, $100,000 and what you actually have to physically hand over in monies. Is that enough to get him from fleeing to not flee the country? I don't believe that it is when you're facing a significant prison sentence. And that's one of the points of bail, is will this person return? But it also sends a horrible message, one we continue to see sent over and over and over in Washington state. And that is the rights of the criminals. The rights and the feelings and what's fair and not fair. That in this state, we care more about that consideration for criminals than we do victims, than we do law-abiding people, than we do family members of victims. And this is another insane example of that. Again, the judge's name, because we do not, as a society, I think, and as voters, pay close enough attention to what's happening in our courtrooms and judges. Judge Richard Okrent. Judge Richard Okrent, O-K-R-E-N-T. I don't know anything else that he's done on the bench, to be fair. I don't know if he has any other misguided decisions like this one. But I know enough based on this to say that if you see that last name and a judge up for election, O-K-R-E-N-T, you don't fill in the circle next to him. There have to be consequences for these judges, and this is one of the many failures in our judicial system. Is you've got Democrats in Olympia, they push soft on crime policies, those policies go into effect. You've got sanctuary policies, you give people just slaps on the wrist, you let them go on low bail. The whole system is broken. And the whole system is designed to lift criminals up and push the rest of us down. Why, you might ask? I just gave a speech on this last weekend. Why do you think they're letting the crime crisis get so bad? Just blatantly. Why do you think that they're taking away the ability of police officers to protect the public, do their one job, protect the public? Why do you think they're going after people like that owner of the car dealership in Eatonville, who is now facing criminal charges for pursuing a guy who stole his truck because police couldn't do it? Why do you think they're doing that? Make it impossible for police to protect you, punish you if you protect yourself, let the criminals go. It's because they want you to be so scared that you come crawling to the government for help. It's because they want you so fearful that you willingly give up liberties, that you willingly hand over more money for taxes, because they'll promise you, oh, give us this and this. Give up this liberty. Give us this money in taxes. We'll hire more officers. We'll make you feel safe again. And all the while, they're the ones who made you feel unsafe in the first place. They want to grow the size of government. And in order to do that, they need you to let them do it. And that's how you end up with a crime crisis as profound as the one we're dealing with now. That's how you end up with a homeless crisis as profound as the one we're dealing with now. a drug crisis, you name it, everything. When they allow it to get so bad, it's intentional and it's designed to increase the size of government, to make you so dependent on government that you'll give up anything. You'll give up your very freedoms to feel safe again, to feel secure again. And I, part of me hates to give them so much credit that it's this, all grand conspiracy between all the judges and the lawmakers and all that. I don't think I'm quite tinfoiled enough for that yet. But whether they're doing it intentionally or not, that is the outcome. That you'll come crawling back to them saying, please keep us safe. I can't keep my own family safe. Can't even bring my kid to a freaking youth baseball game in Auburn without 30 rounds going off in the distance. Please help keep us safe. Unreal. I mean, slap in the face to Trooper Gadd's family. Slap in the face. And I really hope that the federal government carries through, because the state level can't tell them what to do. They can't tell the feds what to do. Snohomish County can't tell the feds what to do. So this is what needs to happen. When Raul Benitez Santana posts bail, which he will, now that it's been dropped to $100,000, the feds need to go pick him up and put him in a fed prison, in a detention facility for undocumented immigrants, and hold him there until his trial's over. And then as soon as his trial's over, as soon as he serves his sentence, and let's hope the sentence is fitting of the crime, then they go pick him up and they put him back in Mexico. That's what needs to happen. I hope the feds have the balls to do it.